Hello there, welcome to day 198. Day 198, 365 days towards racial change. I am Tomlin Nyback. Just going to take it easy today. We're going to transition into Uncle Tom's Cabin for a length of time. I'm going on vacation. I'm starting to need to simplify some things, and it'd be just a good opportunity to move Uncle Tom's Cabin along. Some good, juicy stuff that I've found resonates with me. I hope you all enjoy it when we get to it in a couple days. But today we've got some after effects of our lengthy leadership discussions. First, let's talk about why we're here. Maybe you're new, and you'll know my audience will tell you, "Oh boy, here comes the introduction." Well, it's very important. Repetition is one of the key components here. It's something I wish was more evident in my life on some areas. I think I'd be in a different place. I might be in a place feeling as though, uh, America has treated me well, and projects like this are so extreme. We'll see. Uh, but I don't feel I came that route. And my personal belief is that if you are black in America, your existence in the land is challenged, regardless of financial status, popularity, geographical location, political position. Uh, if your skin is black or darker than mine, in most cases, not all, there's plenty of black people that identify. My mother's extremely fair. But no matter where you land, being a black person, my belief is that your existence in America is challenged uh, to a much greater degree than anyone else in the land. We are mentioned, uh, used code words are used to reference us in the Constitution of the United States. Those code words mean that we are uh, we are supposed to be a disadvantaged people. It's written right in to the fabric of the foundations of this nation. So it's, in a sense, any disadvantage a black person has or feels in America is very much sanctioned, written down hundreds of years ago by our founding fathers and endorsed. Okay, let's get to it though. I'm concerned, based on that brief monologue there, I'm concerned about the mind of all Americans, all America, black and white mainly. For the black mind, if we understand that constitutionally we are oriented in America in a certain way, uh, kind of a fixed position because this stuff is written down, hard coded into um, what makes America what it is. Based on that, what's our attitude? What's our mindset? How are we situated mentally in this landscape? Conversely, for the white mind, the privilege, power, the um, relative ease of moving about in America. What's that about? Does anything need to change? I believe there's a white privilege in the land. And what's the response? What's the mental condition of a person who feels so privileged in the land? Next big concern is for financial literacy, understanding how money works, how money moves, who's got it. Money is important because that's how we get things done. It's how we move. It's where the volition comes. It's where the power uh, is ascribed. It's how um, we get along in America. It determines our future, how we handle money, resources, and whatnot. Very important. So we want to be financially literate. How to use our money in the most effective ways for our benefit. And trust me, you got a lot of people snatching at, uh, you know, snatching at your wallet. Um, there are people that be glad to give you a loan, and then they won't leave you alone. Got to avoid that. Got to avoid that. I wish I was much more educated and prepared before I took advantage of these deals that appeared to benefit me so much. But now I'm navigating new kinds of slavery on these points. Very troubling. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Read 3 of his works. He has plenty of material, YouTube and stuff like that. Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. We just finished our leadership series out of that book. And Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. On that note, we're going to look roughly, just brainstorm a little bit about government, organizational entities and stuff in a moment. Behind me, you'll see hashtag #us2 symbol. Find black women supporting one another and conversing there. You'll see, go to Blog Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a black Facebook experience. It's the World Wide Web. If you can't find your flavor, if you've not been able to get your voice out, get your voice heard, find like-minded people, then, maybe start your own like I did. I got a handful of private subscribers, private email list, and I'd love to have you join. But that's what I did. And mostly, do it for yourself. This information, disseminating it, posting it, and doing monologues and things like that, it's for my benefit, my health, my mental, catharsis. I'm being reamed out, being cleaned up um, in a lot of ways, and it's very therapeutic, you know. And it doesn't have to be on race. Do it on your pets, making your bed, watching corn grow. I don't know. Well, whatever you think is going to do the trick, that's probably going to do the trick. So you want to try it out. And finally, coming up another day or two, I got to get through some more information. Uncle Tom's Cabin. I'm positioning myself because I'm going on vacation soon. But Uncle Tom Cabin. Oh, Harriet Beecher Stowe's phenomenal work. You want to dive into that, and we have what's called story time. Every once in a while, we're going to have an extended story time, getting into the dense chapters that just continue to get more and more dense as we go along. We're about halfway through, and excuse me. We'll catch up with old Tom and his new home with the St. Clairs and what's going on there, and see how he's getting along and see what direction Miss Stowe is going to take us in Uncle Tom's journey. All right, day 198. We're not going to. It's not going to be a real emotional post. I'm sure we got plenty of time left. 100 plus days, 150 some odd days, 160 days to get into more emotional stuff. But today I want to just talk about we were talking about leadership, and I started to go segue and get sidetracked into the notion of an element that I think supports successful ethnic communities in America. What I mean by ethnic communities, I mean those maybe the Hispanics from Mexico, per se, and maybe Puerto Rican. They're two different people. Be careful. um, or a bunch of the Asian groups, the Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, uh, you know, Vietnamese, Hmong groups, these groups, Arab groups uh, here in America that kind of come here, establish some unity, and do well, prosper as a group, have group loyalty and whatnot. And I was talking about how it may come from their connection to their homeland communities. This may be especially true for Chinese and Russians too. How they've come to the country, but they're still adhering to a lot of traditions from back home. You watch The Godfather, you'll really see it in action. You're a Sicilian, it'll rub you out, stuff like that, and how those traditions, they came to America, yes, but their traditions prevailed, and that galvanized their communities to make them um, that much more successful. And this is an important point, I think, for this year-long project because Black people don't have that necessarily. That's something we would have if we left America and started a community, a colony somewhere. You know, but being here in America, we don't really have that. We don't have African customs uh, that I well, that I'm how can I say that I don't regularly practice. You know, we're Americans. See, understand first, the Black American, uh, their connection to Africa is tentative at best. At best, Alex Haley was fortunate, uh, but you're going to it's be hard pressed to find masses of Black Americans um, readily connected to any peoples from Africa. And it's been that long. There's been that much turnover, upheaval, separation of families, and all that, where we are, well, we carry the water, so to speak, of everybody else. It's that slave dynamic so much. I was watching a recent news cycle about our president and racist tweets and things like that. But one of his spokespeople, readily said, I'm of, I think, Irish and Italian descent. she could just whip that off. Well, I can't whip off where I can maybe whip off a continent. At least she can identify two countries. That continent it's a big continent with a lot of countries. you know, I have no doubt that there's an African couple that survived that trip and got on with life in America. But you're going to be hard pressed to find those individuals. I wonder, with this Ancestry.com and these DNA places, I wonder if they're being fair about family of origin and stuff like that. I don't see a whole lot of black people on these commercials. You see all the white European folks, you know, with all their European ancestry, nice and cataloged in detail. I wonder if black people if they're submitting to that process, if those places are being fair and honest. Because my guess is there's might be some masses blood running around in there. All right, let me get back on topic though. Government. What I'm talking about is, these ethnic groups have a connection to some solid homeland. It makes some group norms for these groups when they get here. It takes time to learn the American way. Yeah, land of the free, home of the brave, land of the free, and stuff. Uh, but they're going to be they rely on they don't cast off their Asian heritage, their Jewish heritage, their European heritage, their Mexican heritage. These things are still very real in their lives and in their communities. You go to a Spanish-speaking community, you hear the music, you hear the language. There's with the Spanish people, they're very family-oriented, very important. Um, Probably all ethnic communities. Um, I'm not sure if they're readily killing each other off like black folks do with each other. But the point is, there's cohesiveness because they adhere and listen to some aspects that go on from their homeland. With that, with the government, a successful black community is going to need similar elements to be successful, prosperous, and growing. As I was writing this, I visited the Nation of Islam's website. I'm not necessarily a supporter, but they have a kind of a government, a monarchy, if you will. I'm not an expert on the Nation of Islam, but there's a leadership. There's a national plan. I'm sure they have certain ways that their organization works across all 50 states, if they are in all 50 states. I looked at the National Action Network. Reverend Al Sharpton has national in it, so 50 states. There's some representation, but there's protocol, procedure that makes them, um, that makes that a workable organization. NAACP, I looked, they got the national office, the headquarters, then the states get involved, and the states facilitate a lot of programs, mainly educational. You know, I'm not necessarily promoting a competition within black communities, but you're going to find, the blueprint for success with black Americans is going to be to have a real organized um, an organization with national interest. We've got to span a geographical area and all that. Our technology is going to facilitate a lot of that. I think a physical space will make it even more valid, more potent. That'll be more. That'll help it, be more legitimate. You know, the best example I can think of, and it's probably a no-brainer when I say this, is the United States. As these founding fathers, and as history has moved along, these mainly white men, looked out for a national interest, had a plan, goal, um, threw black people under the bus and all that. I don't know what our organization would look like, even if one ever does spring up. It seems like Dr. Anderson's trying to get some things going. But think about it. America, we've got a document. Now, this document is so important that to destroy the document is um, to put the nation in jeopardy. That's how important this document is, and that's the Constitution. And then there's articles of how we interpret the Constitution and forward that to the public. There's a Congress to handle these things. It's extremely complicated, and it's a hell of an organization. It's huge, international, right? It's probably the American government is one of the biggest corporations in the world, right? You know, yeah, it's a government, but it's not an altruistic moral arm and stuff like that. It's a business with an agenda, getting some stuff done. So, but we can glean some examples from America. You know, have a written document, and lawmakers today would probably say, the Constitution, it's our foundational document. From there, we get policy and stuff and try to live these elements out in the world. But it's like the contract of the United States. I learned in music business, and this is for all businesses actually. You know, you have the contract, and then you have something called the rider. The contract is the bullet points of the nature of the agreement, and it can be very short document. You know, X, Y, Z. This is what we agreed to do. Maybe there's some financial information, all that in there, and whatnot. One page could do it all, right? I'm talking $1 billion projects and whatnot. One page can get it done. Look at the United States. We got one page, one handwritten page, and have our influence all over the world. And then there's the rider. Now the rider is a document that's going to detail point by point how things are going to go. We can agree to exchange $1 for some goods over a certain amount of time, but the writer's going to say, almost detail what form the dollar going to be in, over what amount of time, point by point. There's going to be measurable goals in there. What goods, and how the goods are getting exchanged and stuff like that. On what dates, it can get very get a lot of information there in the writer, and it's a lot of detail important to understand both documents. So that's what we have, and that's what we'll need, I think. It'd be interesting, for us, if us exists, to have conventions and things like that. Plenty of groups are already doing stuff. Nation of Islam, when I went to their website, they're proposing some holidays next February, and where to go, meet, and be a part of that organization. Dr. Anderson has his heritage celebration August 10th, 2019. So, everybody has something. Those are important. But I just wanted to just talk about this. Let's be honest, like, success as a group is going to take some structure, organization, planning, um, sober minds, some follow through to establish certain certain important elements of a successful Black community. You know, so there you go. Not a big dense post, but just the wheels turning. I hope we can see beyond a year-long project or already established national organizations. We want to bring, hopefully, we somehow want to bring together all of our energy and make something, present something real to the world where Black people are competing equally in the United States and being taken seriously in this, wealthy American landscape. And we need a government. We don't have to call it a government. A lot of these people don't call their organizations governments, but a body and some documents to really make our efforts a reality in the land. I'm Thomas Nyback. Just going to get out of the way. Hey, finished a little early today. Thanks for hanging in there. Day 198. I promise you, stay tuned. Uncle Tom's Cabin is going to be back here in another day or two. And have a great night. Thanks again. I'll see you tomorrow.